Welcome, everybody. My name's Darcy Hitchcock with the Sustainability Alliance. Please forgive the beeping in the background. Those are people still being added to the meeting. I am recording this, and we're so glad to have you. We had 97 people registered for this, so some of them are still probably coming on. Regardless of your political preference, the shameful spectacle in our nation's capital yesterday is a reminder that there are proper ways, productive ways of influencing our government and improper ways. We can vote, we can write our representatives, we can peacefully protest. At the local level, though, probably the most powerful thing you can do is to participate in the creation of the community and comprehensive plans, because they transcend election cycles. They lay out the priorities for a decade. So I'm so delighted to be able to bring this opportunity for all of us to learn how to influence the update of the Yavapai County Comprehensive Plan. Let me introduce the agenda and as well as the speakers. Craig Swanson, who is the incoming president of Keep Sedona Beautiful, has been leading in-depth research into the comprehensive plan. What's in the existing one? Please turn off your video if you're not speaking. So Craig's been leading this effort to understand what's in the existing comprehensive plan, what other comprehensive plans have, and so he'll explain that and also share what is known about the county comprehensive plan process, how we will be able to interact with it. And then he'll pause and there'll be questions and answers. So throughout this process, if you have questions, please use the chat box for that purpose. Then John Black, who's been taking an active role in updating the comprehensive plan, will help us understand the role of unincorporated communities, how they're different from the existing cities and towns, and the so-called vision statements that the county has been talking about accepting. And again, we'll take time for questions to explore more about that. Donna Michaels, our new county supervisor, had a family emergency, so she will not be able to join us, but Sally Jackson, who works with her, will be standing in for her and has a statement that she's provided. I've asked John Thompson, who is a former city council member and very active member of the Sustainability Alliance, to manage the Q&A. So again, at any point, indicate in the chat if you have questions. And then at the very end, I'll drop back in to wrap up. And after the session, I'll be sending all the slides, so don't feel like you have to take desperate notes during this whole presentation. And there will also be a survey to understand better what, how you might want to stay informed and how you might want to be involved. Again, I'm sorry for all the noise in the background. Hopefully that'll settle down. And for those of you who have just joined us, we are recording this session. So with that, I'm going to hand it off. Again, if please you leave your video off if you're not speaking. Use the chat box and stay muted to cut down on any noise in the background. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Craig Swanson to help us understand more the comprehensive plan, what's in it, what should be in it, and how we can participate.
Great, thank you, Darcy. And I want to emphasize a point that Darcy made, because I think it's really important, is that we look at this as a respectful, cooperative process. We're going to work as a partner with the county. We and other incorporated communities and other groups throughout the county are going to work in a cooperative manner to try to influence the comprehensive plan. When KSB understood that the county was engaging on a 2-year effort to do the required update to the county comprehensive plan, we realized that this is one of the most important documents that the county has. And spending the time and effort to make certain that we positively influence the upcoming comprehensive plan is extraordinarily important for us. I'm going to have a lot of information that I go through, and as Darcy said, you're going to get copies of the PowerPoint slides. So if you're tempted to take notes on any of the items that I show on the screen, don't worry about it, because you're going to get a copy of that. I want to start with, and I got to put mine there, a little bit of background. In 1998, Arizona passed what's called the Growing Smarter Act, which set forth a 2-year process for a group to make recommendations on counties creating documents that control certain activities within the county. And in the year 2000, Growing Smarter Plus was enacted. And what it does is it codifies the recommendations that this committee made. And it requires each county within the state to replace what used to be called their general plans with what are now called comprehensive plans. And they're focusing on how the counties control future growth. And this was all codified in a revised statute, so it is a law within the state of Arizona that this has to be done. It's not optional, it's mandatory. And one of the things that it states is the comprehensive plan, and this is from the Growing Smarter Act, shall be developed so as to conserve the natural resources of the county, to ensure efficient expenditure of public monies, and to promote the health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the public. And it's key to note that the first thing they say is to conserve the natural resources of the county. It also says, and this is a quote from the Growing Smarter Act, its purpose and effect shall primarily be as an aid to the County Planning and Zoning Commission and to the Board of Supervisors in the performance of their duties. And that word primarily is extremely important. It's not exclusively for that, it's primarily for that. And what it does, the incorporated towns within all of the counties of Arizona have their own planning and zoning regulations. They have their own officials that take input from P&Z boards and determine whether a proposal for development or rezoning is appropriate or not. Unincorporated counties don't, or unincorporated communities don't have that. And therefore, the county document, the comprehensive plan, provides a framework for those unincorporated communities to be able to have their input and for planning and zoning decisions that have to be made at the county basis to be made. Comprehensive plans have to include certain required elements, and required element is a term from the legislation. We'll go into a little more about this later, but land use, transportation, environmental and water resources, open space, energy use, cost of development, which is how the county pays for infrastructure that's required by a new development, and growth areas. Those are the required elements that have to be in comprehensive plans. And they have to be updated by every county at least every 10 years. That's why we're in the process now, because the Yavapai County Plan was last updated in 2012. So by the end of 2022, we are scheduled to have an update ready. Key in this for some counties is that there are fewer required elements for smaller counties. The state recognized that they have far fewer resources, but for larger counties like Yavapai County, the larger counties have to address all of the elements that the statute defines. And the state statutes identify topics. So they'll list each of those 8 required elements. And the state statute also talks about within that element, what specific topics does the state require that the county covers? but it doesn't say how. It doesn't say what format it has to happen. It gives counties the leeway to present the required information in a way that the county feels is best. Another important thing about it is it doesn't limit the counties from discussing other topics. It doesn't say you can only discuss these 8 required elements. So as we'll see further on in another slide, some counties have decided that it's particularly important for them to cover another topic. They'll have an entire section of their comprehensive plan on something other than one of the required elements. The statute says that each county must have robust public participation in the process. And that's in fact why we're here today, is part of anticipating that public participation and input into the process. Comprehensive plans are a formal document that are adopted by each county's Board of Supervisors through a formal vote. And that comprehensive plan applies until either a new revision of the plan is done or there's some sort of major adjustment made to the plan that the county supervisors approve. And as I said before, it's most applicable to unincorporated parts of the county. That doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to the entire county, because again, the statute says primarily to unincorporated parts of the county. That's a really important thing to keep in mind. The statute states, and it's important, that zoning and rezoning ordinances, regulations, and specific area plans have to be consistent with and conform to the adopted county plan. And I underline specific area plans very deliberately because the ordinance doesn't say comprehensive plans replace specific area plans. It says it must be consistent with them. And what's happened in many counties is that they have funded a process that makes certain that the specific area plans within that county are in fact consistent and conform. The reason for this stated in the statute is so that there aren't conflicting statements where an area plan says the density for this area is limited to 1 house per acre. And the comprehensive plan doesn't speak to that at all. And some proposal for a development comes in and a developer points to the comprehensive plan and says, this meets the requirements of the comprehensive plan. And the local area says, but it doesn't meet our community plan. It doesn't meet our area plan. So in order to resolve that potential conflict, they have to be consistent with each other. And that of course takes time and energy. There's a lot of variability among the plans. KSB, when we set out on this process, we looked through the county comprehensive plan in depth, element by element, honestly, page by page. And we also looked at the other county plans to see what they did. And as an example, Pinal and Pima counties, they have a heavy Native American population and tradition, and they include a specific section in their comprehensive plan dedicated to the topic of cultural resources. Again, the state doesn't say you can't put this topic in. It simply says these are the topics you must cover. Cochise County Plan includes an entire section on rural character. They find that so important that they wanted to call it out in their comprehensive plan as a separate section of the plan. They're extraordinarily variable in terms of how detailed they are. Apache County is sparsely populated with fewer resources. Their entire comprehensive plan is only 34 pages, and it only covers the topics of land use, infrastructure and services, and circulation, which the state means transportation by that. Those are the required elements for the smallest county. On the other end of the spectrum is Coconino County, which we personally think is a model for the state. It's 250 pages, And it covers all of these sections, some of which directly relate to one of the required elements, but some of which don't, like sustainability and resiliency. They determined that that was such an important topic that they were going to devote an entire section of their county plan to that, an entire section on community services, an entire section on public safety. And it shows the kind of flexibility that counties have to cover topics that the county feels are critical. Yavapai County Comprehensive Plan takes a very literal approach to the content. And what it does, it has 8 sections, and each of those sections are on one of the required elements. They address that required element, they go on to the next one, they go on to the next one. Now, a particular topic like open space could be mentioned in another element. It's not that the element is myopic and only takes a narrow look at the particular element, but they've taken a very literal approach. And one of our suggestions, KSB's suggestions in this process, is the county loosens that up and takes a less literal approach and entertains the notion of having separate sections on other topics that are of keen importance to the county. The Yavapai County Comprehensive Plan is 114 pages of information. It was created during a really bad economic downturn, and the county recognizes this. They've said in discussions that that is the case, and because of that, the comprehensive plan that was created at that time, because again, it's a 2-year process, so they started in 2010. They emphasized continuing economic growth because it was critical to the county at that moment. Yavapai County Development Services and their director, David Williams, are responsible under the direction of county supervisors to develop the update to the plan. And one of the things David Williams has said on a number of different public occasions is that the county understands that there are significant deficiencies in the current plan. There is ambiguity, there is not clarity, and what it does is it gives both opponents and proponents of almost any major development proposal reasons within the comprehensive plan why this proposal should be approved or this proposal should be denied. Now, there's always going to be something within a comprehensive plan that somebody can cherry pick to make their point. That's never going to go away. But it does a particularly poor job at codifying rules so that developers know what the limits are. They're ambiguous. And as I said before, almost any proposal can be justified or opposed. That shouldn't happen. There should be more clarity. There's always going to be situations where there's gray area, but there's far too much in the current comprehensive plan. The vision is stated in the very beginning of the current 2012 Yavapai County Comprehensive Plan is to protect the unique quality of life characteristics within each of the diverse communities, to preserve our Western rural and ranching traditions, and to responsibly manage the process of urbanizing communities when desired through specific planned growth and the sustainable use of finite resources. We think the vision could be stated better, but this is not bad. It really isn't. The problem is it doesn't include sufficient policies or actions to achieve that vision. For example, there's not enough emphasis on preserving the local community character. As I mentioned before, one of the county comprehensive plans has an entire section on rural character. And we feel that that's lacking in the Yavapai County Comprehensive Plan, and empowering unincorporated communities is lacking. John is going to talk a little more about this in terms of the moratorium that was put on considering local community plans that's now been lifted. But this is a really important point for us. We think there's very insufficient emphasis on the protection of water supply and on riparian areas. Water is a tough topic because of the limitations that the state puts on counties. We recognize that. We understand that there are legal limitations on what the county can do, but protecting our riparian areas, our rivers and streams, there's no mention in the current comprehensive plan, for example, that the two wild and scenic rivers within the state of Arizona reside in Yavapai County. And that's a deficiency that needs to be corrected. Another thing particularly important to this meeting that was brought together by the Sustainability Alliance is the term sustainability in the current plan almost always refers to being able to sustain the pace of economic development. That's what it refers to as sustainability most of the time, rather than the sustainability and resilience of resources and the environment. We think this is a particularly egregious hole in the current comprehensive plan that needs to be filled. It lacks clear and measurable goals. If this is something that is going to help control the growth of the county for the next 10 years, we believe that there need to be goals that are set and can be measured and can be reported on by the county on their website. The current plan includes recommendations, but we think that that is far too lax. It lacks action steps. Along with goals and objectives, the plan, we believe, should say, here is how the county is going to act in order to meet these goals and implement policies. It lacks accountability. It talks a number of times in the current plan about statements that were made in the prior county comprehensive plan, but it doesn't say anything about the progress that was made towards them. So we have no idea whether we're in the same spot we were 10 years ago. And it doesn't include recognition of protecting our cultural resources. We think this is a glaring omission. Yavapai County includes some of the most significant cultural resources in the state, in the Southwest, in the country. And the more that we look into it, the more we find. There's a group from Friends of the Forest that's documenting what we believe are markings from pre-archaic people, from Clovis markings from 10 to 12,000 years ago that are scattered around the Verity Valley. We believe there should be an entire section on cultural resources. And it presumes growth. We believe that there need to be some recognition of the appropriate limits to growth that are out there. And we're going to suggest to the county that this is a really important thing to do at this point. The next steps are generalized so far. David Williams in Development Services hasn't laid them out directly, but from the last update of the plan, what they had was 7 months of participation, public participation, meetings, workshops, surveys, things like this. Another 7 months of technical review by an advisory committee, and John is going to get more into that shortly, and submission to, whoops, I'm sorry about that, submission to the county supervisors, and then finally a public comment period where they're for 7 months going to solicit public comments on their draft, make reviews and revisions, and at the end of the process, it'll be adopted by the Board of Supervisors. Upcoming will be naming of an advisory board or a citizens advisory committee. John will talk about more of that later. He'll also talk a little bit more about drafting and submission of vision statements. what can we do? Why are we here? Why are we asking for your input? Well, there's a number of key things. One is we firmly believe there should be a more robust citizens advisory committee. It's far too small. And we ask people to contact their county supervisors and development services to request that the citizens advisory committee be much more robust. KSB believes there should be a science advisory committee. It was something that Coconino County had. And in this day and age of climate change, we really have to get the opinion of experts in the field as the county develops the updates to the county comprehensive plan. There should be funding for this, and John is going to hit this heavily, but we believe that community plans need to be updated, and those community plans, along with vision statements, need to be incorporated in to the county comprehensive plan in a consistent manner so they're not at odds with each other. To do that requires staffing. Staffing requires funding. Funding has to be approved by county supervisors. So we're again looking for people within the community to lobby their county supervisors and development services to adequately fund this entire initiative. A note on community plans. Why do we think that they could be incorporated into the county comprehensive plan? Because other counties have done it. Apache County, this small, tiny county that had a 34-page comprehensive plan, states that the plans from 4 unincorporated communities are the controlling planning documents for those communities. And the Coconino plan says zone changes, conditional use permits must be consistent not only with the goals and policies of this comprehensive plan, but also those of the applicable area plans, rural planning areas, and the Flagstaff Regional Plan 2030. What that means is they allocated the resources to assist those unincorporated areas in coming up with their community plans so that they would be consistent with the county comprehensive plan. Kind of as a final note, I want to let you know that on the KSB website, and I'll be showing you a screenshot of it, we've put a bunch of resource documents for those who are interested in finding them. They're all available from the web, but including the state statutes, the moratorium resolutions, Yavapai and Coconino County plans, the Cornville Community Plan, which has been identified as an example of a really good community plan. Also materials from the Verde Valley Land Use Forum that happened at the end of 2019, and there's a few more. And what you can do at the KSB website is there's this, oh, and my screen is not showing it, but there's that link up there that you're seeing. Click on that link that's on the homepage of our website, and this is what'll come up: resource material for updating the county comprehensive plan. Each of these down here are links. You can go to them and you can download your own copy. You can read them on the web, do with them as you wish. We also included just recently, down on the bottom of this screen, development services held a number of sessions to introduce unincorporated areas to what they were looking for vision statements. Meeting number 1 and 2 were effectively the same meeting. They held it twice, but there's a video of that. And then meeting number 3, they also held twice, and there's a video of each of those. They held a 5th meeting, kind of as a wrap up and question and answer, but they haven't posted a video of that yet. With that, that was the information. I know that's a lot in a relatively short period of time. I hope it gives you background, and I hope it gives you the ability, the desire to go look up some of those source documents and inform yourselves more about the comprehensive plan and to join one of the groups that's working to assist the county. With that, I'm going to turn it over to JT to field any questions anybody might have.
And they are coming in, Craig.
Wonderful.
So we'll need to be pretty efficient here to
Got
get
it.
these all in. First one is, can you be more specific regarding the consistency issue between the county comprehensive plan and an incorporated community plan like Sedona's?
Incorporated community plans don't matter for consistency. Incorporated community plans are the primary document for an incorporated community. It doesn't really matter what's in the county comprehensive plan, planning and zoning issues, land use issues, because incorporated community plans take precedence. It's the unincorporated community plans that have to be consistent.
Okay. Next question, what is the process to add a new topic to the comprehensive plan?
We have to suggest it and the county has to agree to include it. To suggest it and include it, it will take some sort of threshold of community interest in doing that. One of the ways that can happen, for example, is through the survey that John Black is going to be talking about, where the county is going to poll citizens on what they believe is important. And if that survey includes a question about the importance of cultural resources, for example, and 80% of the people who take that survey say this is critical, they're going to listen more closely. But the county is the final arbiter for what goes in the comprehensive plan. We just have to put pressure on them.
Okay. Looks like I've got three more here. There is a Cornville community plan. How do you find out where other community plans exist for unincorporated areas of the county?
And I did find, John Black, in fact, was the person who found all of these. And John, I'm sure you're willing and able to shoot me an email that has each of those. I believe I have copies of them, but what I will do is I'll add them to that page of the KSB website as resource material. That's a very good point, and I'll do that.
Okay. Do the links on the KSB site include a direct link to the Growing Smarter statutes and regulations?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And last one we have at this point, would the Science Advisory Committee include Indigenous knowledge? We need to have traditional knowledge as well as Western science to help us solve the complexity of the issues.
There is no reason that that can't be suggested to the county. There then, of course, has to be an expert with that Indigenous knowledge who would be willing to serve on that committee. But there is absolutely no reason that can't be. In fact, I'll take a note to, KSB has a lot of, we have a key issues list we're keeping of topics we want to discuss with the county, and I'll add that to the list. It's a very good suggestion. Thank you.
All right, and one more snuck in here. What section of the plan would have information on dark sky initiatives and code policies?
Probably the environmental section would be the appropriate receptacle for that. And one of the things that KSB is going to suggest is that we have a dark sky ordinance for the entire county. David Williams did in fact talk about in one of the sessions that I attended the notion of making Yavapai County a dark sky county, which would be the first county in the country, potentially the first in the world. So we know that at least Development Services is open to that, and we are going to push that extremely hard. Hopefully it will be one of the questions on the survey that's administered.
Okay, that'll do it for right now. I'll save them up for the next Q&A period.
All righty, and I am going to stop my screen sharing. So John, you should be able to pick up your screen sharing at this point. Thank you everyone for attending.
Well, I want to welcome you all to 2021. hoping this will be a better year than the last one. Let's see, is my, there we go, okay. Looking to get my screen sharing going here. Let's try it again. All right, there we go. Just wanted to welcome David Williams. He's just joined us. I'm glad you were able to make time for this. And if we have any questions that need some county answers, we'll invite you to participate. So, okay, I thought Craig did a wonderful job there of talking about what the comprehensive plan is, what its purpose is, how it's structured, and so forth. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the process that we're going to use that's been proposed, at least at this point, for developing the new comprehensive plan. As Craig mentioned, the comprehensive plan needs to be redone or reworked or recreated every 10 years. That's a mandate by the state. And our next comprehensive plan will be published in 2022. So we've got approximately 2 years to work on this. And we're going to need a lot of community participation to get it done. So as I said, we're focusing primarily on the process that's going to be used to create this plan. A little bit of history. In 2002, the Yavapai County General Plan, as it was called then, adopted 14 community plans into it. By adoption, I mean it treated it as part of the general plan. And then in 2012, when it was the 10-year period was up and they needed to create a new comprehensive plan, they instituted what they called a moratorium on community plans. Okay. So what did that moratorium say? This was in the very back of the comprehensive plan. I'm reading to you directly. In the past, community plans were created with assistance from staff and adopted by the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors. So they were recognizing that fact. In March of 2010, a moratorium on community planning was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in favor of creating a policy of considering a community vision statement process for communities to create a document describing how they envision their community growing. Okay. A community vision statement is a document created by the residents of the community to be used as a tool to review proposed land use projects. The document is not adopted by Yavapai County and is therefore not binding. So the difference between adopting and not adopting is what role does that document play in the planning process? And how much does it have to say about the development within communities? So David Williams last July was asked to present to the Board of Supervisors some kind of a roadmap for how we would update our comprehensive plan for the next 10 years. He offered them 3 options. He called them option A, B, and C. So let's look at those 3 options. Option A was to edit and update the existing comprehensive plan. And he emphasized that it must include a density map. And he went into some detail as to why that was important. The previous comprehensive plan did say something about density and said that it should be, limited in some way, but it didn't have a map that showed what the densities were across the county. That caused a problem for planning because if a developer came in and proposed an extremely high density development in the middle of a low density area, there was no map to refer to say that's out of scale. And so our planning department was forced to hold planning and zoning hearing, go through the entire process simply because they had nothing to say about this, what the density could be. So David emphasized that was really, really key in our future comprehensive plan to be able to say, here are the densities across the county, and here's what it would be compatible with those densities. That was option A.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's a question as to whether you can maximize your screen.
I'm not sure what you're asking me to do here.
Now, the question is it possible for John to maximize his screen? I can't see the full slide as I could in the previous presentation.
This is Craig. I think that comment was put out there right at the beginning of John's presentation, and I believe it is now maximized.
Okay.
All right. Option B was to use the same process that was used in 2012 and basically collect vision statements and then treat them as input, but not necessarily binding, okay? In other words, they would not be adopted. Option C was to return to the original community plan approach, the one that had been used in the previous comprehensive plan, where communities submit community plans, and those are then adopted into the comprehensive plan. So in presenting option C, David said option C would be to bring the community plans back and start looking at this on a more individualized level. I take that to mean on a more local level within the community. We have heard from community groups in the Verde Valley that there's interest in moving in that direction. So he was basically saying to the Board of Supervisors, there's some interest in going this route. In other words, once again, including these community plans. The Board of Supervisors decided to go with option B. That was to ask for vision statements and then in some way use those to create the comprehensive plan. So in David's way of setting that up was to first basically conduct a survey to find out what are the concerns of county residents. Okay. And then post that survey online, let people
Hi, Margaret. Sorry to bug you again. Quick question for you.
Yes.
Putting together a template that will be the letter that goes along with the grant. And do you want just to tell the recipients that these funds are from the Walkie Grace Fund and not your name, correct? No, that's fine. You don't have to worry about it. It's just a letter that we generate.
Whoever is talking right now, you're talking about something completely off topic. Please mute yourself.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to confirm. No problem. Bye-bye.
Okay, well, we can handle more questions at the end when we get through this. There'll be some time to do that. So David's proposal was that we start a process where we determine what are issues of concern across the county. In other words, invite people and organizations to submit suggestions for things that should go onto this survey. Then once the survey has been created, we would post this online and we would invite people across the county to get online and look at those concerns and indicate what degree of importance they attach to each of them. So we can set some kind of priorities and determine which things should be included, maybe which things wouldn't necessarily be included. The second step would be to collect vision statements. These would be 10-page documents. Basically, 8 of those pages would be devoted to the 8 elements that Craig mentioned earlier that need to go into the comprehensive plan by state requirement. So that he was basically saying, give me something on any of these that you have concerns about and put that into your vision statement, and then we'll be able to use that to build the comprehensive plan, the draft of the comprehensive plan. They would then look at all of those vision statements and they would look for commonalities between them. The idea being that there are areas within the county that share concerns, and basically by comparing and looking for commonalities, find regions within the county that share common concerns and write up the comprehensive plan based on those regions. I believe David originally said maybe 6 or 7. That was just a number he threw out. There's no telling how many there would be. That would all really depend on what was in the vision statements. So now we're talking about the survey. What would the survey what would it look like? David sent out kind of a rough draft, kind of something to get things started, and invited people to suggest changes or additions or whatever in order to build this survey. So what we have done, when I say we, there's about 10 of us in a working group that have taken that original draft and have worked it over, basically added a lot of stuff to it. So I'm just throwing this up here so you can get some idea of what this will look like when you log on to take the survey. Basically, you'll see statements, they'll be numbered, And each statement will have to the right side of it an ability you can choose one among several choices, one being I strongly agree with this statement, or I strongly disagree with this statement, or maybe you just say I need more information, or I don't have an opinion, or whatever. So this is just an example here of 5 of the statements that we currently have in our own rough draft that we're going to be submitting to David. And you can get some idea of the kinds of statements that you would be looking at. So I'll just give you a few moments here to read through this. So let me, is there anyone that has any questions regarding this survey?
Not seeing any questions on this survey,
All right.
John.
Well, we'll go on then. All right, so what would a vision statement look like? We talked about the survey, now we're talking about vision statements. As I mentioned before, it would be a 10-page document. There'd be no maps or graphics, just text only. It would be divided into 8 topics. These correspond to the 8 topics that need to go into the comprehensive plan, and David is basically asking people to submit anything under each of those topics that might be relevant. He did emphasize that if you, as a group or as a community or whatever, are not necessarily concerned about all of these, pick the ones that you are concerned about, providing with input for those. You don't necessarily have to cover all of them in your vision statement. The 2 things that he suggested we not do at this stage was don't start making up maps. For example, if your community is creating a vision statement, don't start drawing up maps for your community. That doesn't mean there won't be maps down the road. He's just saying right now what we want is we want text. We want to know, just give us your thoughts, okay? And in terms of graphics, any graphs or whatever like that, those would come later in the process. Initially, he just wants to keep a simple, clean statement. So who can submit vision statements? Originally, we talked about unincorporated communities, would, the ones who would normally create a community plan. We've also added the possibility of common interest groups. KSB is one example. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be a geographical area. Basically, we're talking about concerns within the county. And there may be groups that cover a large part or even all of the county in terms of their membership. So these are just some examples here of the kinds of groups that would be able to provide input. So how does David describe the comprehensive plan? Now, this is based on option B, which the Board of Supervisors gave him as a guideline for the approach he should take. This is a quote, the comprehensive plan is at the 10,000 foot level. It covers all of Yavapai County. We need to find what that 10,000 view of the county looks like. So in other words, it's a high level view across the whole county. Community vision statements are where a lot of data is going to come from to help to create the larger plan. So he's basically saying he's looking to the vision statements, and they're not just community vision statements, they could be from groups, but he's looking to those vision statements to say, what should we put into this 10,000 view of the 10,000 foot view level of the county, and looking for commonalities between the various vision statements. There will also be an advisory committee that's created, and they will work with the county's planning staff, basically looking through the survey results and the community vision statements, looking at what the content of those is, what the concerns are, and so forth. Look for commonalities, kind of summarize the material, and then the advisory committee would be presented. The staff would do the initial sorting and so forth, and then the advisory committee would be provided with that, and then they can go through it and figure out what they want to see in the comprehensive plan. The idea would be to divide the county up into regions. I have 6 or 7 because that's what David originally mentioned, but there's nothing to say that's what the number would be. It depends on the inputs. And then create a draft of the comprehensive plan based on those regions. So what's the advisory committee? Right now, the way it's specified is there would be 2 supervisors from the Board of Supervisors on that committee. There'd be 2 commissioners from planning and zoning, and 1 other person, and it's not really yet decided who that person would be or who they would represent. That really would be up to the Board of Supervisors. And then 5 people, 1 from each of the 5 county districts. And they would be appointed by the actual supervisors. That's the current plan. There has been just some discussion about, does it make sense to have, for example, 2 supervisors on an advisory committee for the supervisors? It might make more sense to make them ex officio members. They can come participate if they want or whatever, and maybe use those slots for something else. Same thing with the commissioners. They currently advise the Board of Supervisors already. So one possibility that's been thrown out, and this is all up in the air at this point, is the Board of Supervisors that will make the ultimate decision. Would it make more sense to have, for example, 2 people from each district? And as I said, basically the Board of Supervisors will decide what this will consist of. Right now it's limited to 10 people. David said that he really didn't have a place where you could have a large group of people meeting, 20 or 30 people. We are talking about, we'd like to see more participation, but again, that's up to the Board of Supervisors to decide how they would do that. Maybe later, after the COVID situation cools down, there'll be more flexibility in terms of how we do this. So this is all tentative planning. Nothing's been set in concrete yet. So what will be done with the vision statements? We talked a little bit about this before. David said the advisory committee is going to try to find commonality, try to find traits on the countywide level. And then he has admitted this several times. We really don't know where we're going with this. Well, this is just a starting point. And we're kind of launching. He's kind of made up an initial roadmap to cover the first few months of what we're going to do. But this is a 2-year process, and we've got a long way to go. So we probably will be making some mid-course corrections, and the Board of Supervisors might be making some adjustments and so forth. As far as what we do with the vision statements, he said it is entirely possible that by the time we get to the end of this, we'll have an appendix section of the comprehensive plan that pretty much includes all of these vision statements. Okay, again, that's not set in concrete. We really don't know where we're going with that. There's even some discussion about should the vision statements be adopted, which would be a more formal process. Should community plans be adopted again in a formal way? So again, that's all going to be a matter of discussion within the Board of Supervisors, and they'll make those decisions. So ultimately, we're talking about the decision to use option B, which comes down to kind of a blending of the vision statements and to create a 10,000-foot view of the county. That process is already underway. We talked about putting together the survey. We talked about there's a kind of a tentative deadline of March, April for a first draft of the vision statements that David has asked for so that he can get moving on this. So that's already been announced, discussed, detailed, and so forth. We know that the comprehensive plan, it doesn't need to be finished until 2022. And so we have a new Board of Supervisors. I say a new board, 3 of the 5 members are new. They're going to come in and they're going to be reviewing this process in their January meetings. They're talking about the second meeting in January would be where they would appoint people to the advisory committee. We'll see what happens there. Again, if they have discussions about changes they want to make, it may be delayed a little bit, a week or 2. Ultimately, the Board of Supervisors will be the ones that will decide whether or not we will adopt either the vision statements or the community plans. Now that amount would basically amount to option C if we adopt the community plans. So nothing to say we couldn't basically use both option B and C. We're already proceeding on the development of the comprehensive plan, the body of that document through the vision statements, and that will be an ongoing process. It could be that the adoption of the community plans would be a separate process. Now, the one issue that David brought up in his original July meeting was that if the Board of Supervisors wants him to include the community plans, it's vital that we have a full-time person on staff to work with the various communities to explain to them what can go in their community plans, what should not be in there, to look at incompatibilities between their plans and the comprehensive plan, resolve those kinds of issues. Someone who has experience with developing community plans. So if the Board of Supervisors says they want to go and add option C to option B, then they're going to also need to provide him with the resources he needs to basically coach these communities in the development of their community plans. So where are we today? Yavapai County is asking for a public list of concerns, okay, in order to put into their online survey. They're planning to post that online in January. At least that was the original statement. We'll see how that goes because the process of developing the survey is still going on. We're still, we have a tentative deadline for the vision statements of March or April. Beyond that, the process is not really completely defined. And as David mentioned, it's, we're going through this process. I think we're doing it in a more organized manner than last time. David joined the county about, I believe, 7 years ago. He was not involved in the development of the previous comprehensive plan. And it has put him in some difficult positions. He commented, for example, on the Spring Creek situation, the extremely high density that they were proposing. And he really had no alternative in that case but to schedule hearings and so forth, kind of put him in an awkward position because it was clearly out of scale with the surrounding area. So he's hoping that we can develop a comprehensive plan going forward that will allow us to say to a developer who comes in with something that's so out of line with the surrounding area, you need to reconsider this. This is not really compatible. But in order to do that, he needs a comprehensive plan that's workable. So, questions for you. I'm just throwing these out there for you to think about. The option B gives us a 10,000 foot high view of the county. Okay, it's not a very detailed thing. It talks in terms of regions instead of communities and so forth. One question is do you think that's going to be adequate to represent the concerns and needs and values and desires of our communities? Second, will the vision statements in an appendix be adopted by Yavapai County? That's not a question we can really answer. That will be answered by the Board of Supervisors, but you can answer the question of whether you would like to see them adopted. Thirdly, would text-only vision statements be adequate? How would you want to go about adding to that as we go down the road? If you're going to create some kind of community map, what should be on that map and so forth. And if we do create community plans, which will be entirely up to the communities, it's a grassroots kind of process. If a community develops a community plan, should those be adopted into the comprehensive plan? This is really a case where you would need to communicate this to your supervisor, the supervisor for your district, saying, I would like to see these community plans adopted. And then it will be up to them to figure out how to make that process work. In other words, how to activate option C in addition to option B. So how can you get involved? Basically, we're asking you, first of all, do you want to be involved in ongoing sessions? This won't be the last one. We're hoping to keep everybody up to date as we go along. Would you like to receive email updates? And as we progress on this, would you like to join a working group, either a community plan working group or a vision statement working group? The vision statements could be community-based or they could be topic-based, some common interest that you have with some other people. Again, would you like to see the community plans adopted into the county comprehensive plan? That's how you can get involved. You can send an email to your supervisor and say, this is a priority with me. And what other concerns are there that you'd like to see addressed in the comprehensive plan? That's kind of embodied in the survey, and we're asking for inputs on what should go into that survey. Are there concerns, for example, that you'd like to see covered? The survey will, since it's providing input for creation of the comprehensive plan, we really want to cover a pretty wide spectrum of concerns there. And then people taking the survey can kind of prioritize those concerns and say, which ones should be given the special attention. I've had some communications with Donna Williams. She had a medical emergency come up in her family, so she was going to be here today, but she wasn't able to do it, to be here. So she just shot me off a quick text and said, here's some of my thoughts. She said she feels it's important to expand the community representation within the advisory committee. So basically, I guess when she says expand the representation, she's talking about having a larger advisory committee, more people on it. Presumably, she has mentioned something about having 2 from each district. And maybe as the COVID crisis cools, we could add additional people also when we can accommodate them. She mentioned that supervisors will need to be kept up to date on the work going on in the advisory committee, but she feels that they should be participating as ex officio members to make room for other people to participate in that advisory committee. She's saying it may be necessary to extend some deadlines. Some people have said we need more time for our action statements. That's really the only we have. The survey is kind of, we haven't actually set a deadline when that will be up and running. There's also some issues about, as this is a 2-year process. So there probably will be some other issues come up that we might want to add, maybe as have survey number 2 later down the road as we come up with new issues. But right now, the only deadline per se is a March-April deadline, which is a little vague. But that's the one that David suggested for getting in the first draft of the vision statements. And he said, you know, if you don't have it done by then, you can submit what you've got and then submit some more later. Okay. So, but just a concern about giving the public enough time to, you know, we need to get everybody mobilized, because I think it's really important this time around to get people involved in this. We've got an opportunity to really do a first-rate job on this comprehensive plan. And the more people we can get involved, the more successful I think we'll be in doing that. And then our other concern is about what she calls reliability and validity of the surveys. We're right now working, we have an expert who's a professional at doing survey taking, and he's advising us as to how to word the questions and so forth to make the outcome more useful and more valid. We have some questions he's looked at and said, these are too complex. You're asking 3 questions in one statement, so break it up and so forth. So we're working on that, and we're going to be working with David Williams to try to make this as professional as we possibly can, so that the results will be, you know, valuable to the process. All right, how to contact us. You can contact me or Craig or Darcy. I'm giving you the 3 emails here. You're going to be getting a copy of this PowerPoint presentation in a PDF document, so you'll have those. And you will receive some follow-up emails after this meeting. We'll be contacting you and just, you know, asking you for, you know, we'll send you some stuff, and we'll be inviting input. Feel free to contact us, take the initiative if you want. We're really looking for input, and the sooner and better we can get people mobilized, the better the result will be. Any questions?
Yes, we have lots of questions, guys.
Okay.
But before we do that, I know David Williams, as you mentioned, has logged on, and he's would like to comment on a couple of things. So would this be a good time to invite him to speak?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
Let me close out mine.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. I want to, first and foremost, I want to take a moment and just thank everybody for logging in and participating this morning. It's a fantastic turnout. I apologize, I'm trying to turn my camera on, but apparently I'm not getting a button to do that. So, but I just want to thank everybody for, you know, truly participating. I think this is a great thing. There we go. Thank you, whoever turned my video on. There we go. Perfect. So I just truly want to thank everybody. You know, planning is about collaboration. It's about getting the community involvement. It's about getting everybody together and having these conversations. Some are easy, some are tough, but this is the process we're all going through over the next couple of years. So I cannot emphasize it enough. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I wanted to address just a couple of things real quick that I kind of heard earlier. The 8 elements are state statute. That's something that we've got to follow that state statute in. But if there are other areas of interest, let us know. You know, I would love to be able to include some of those other areas. We've got to hit the 8 key points. Those are unfortunately non-negotiable from the, state legislature. Everything else though, let's talk about it. Let's get these interest things, little interest topics out there. Dark skies, I want to really affirm my commitment to dark skies. It is so vitally important to the Verde Valley. Jeremy Dye, the assistant director of the department, and myself, we are both avid astronomers. I will be honest, my son is doing his senior project right now on the spectral analysis of near-Earth objects and asteroids from our backyard in Prescott Valley, using our telescope and everything. So we're really committed to making this work. We're looking to partner up with Coconino County. Jeremy and I started floating the idea of maybe Yavapai County being the very first dark sky county in the United States. Coconino County may have an interest as well. So, I mean, we're talking about trying to make a large region completely dark sky certified right now. So I really want to just put forth our commitment to that because it is very, very important to us personally and professionally. The only other thing I want to say is if anybody's got any questions for the county on this, please let me know. The framework we're under right now is a framework that was created by the Board of Supervisors. So as we go through this process, I have to go back to the board. We have to look at modifications to that framework. But, as John indicated, and as I've said in previous meetings, this is where we start. We're Columbus sailing west. We don't know where we're going to necessarily land. And that's a good thing as part of this. Our hands as the Yavapai County Planning Department have been tied for the last 10 years because of our current plan. If I had been here 10 years ago when this other plan was done, we would not have had the result we've got right now. Unfortunately, it was written by people who were not planners, who did not have the experience, didn't have the background, anything. I can tell you just between myself and Kazi Hawk, the planning manager for the department, we have at this point about 45 to 50 years of planning experience in Arizona, creating plans and doing proper planning. So I'm looking forward to getting a product here that we can hang our hat on that helps protect everybody for the future. So that's all I kind of wanted to say. But if there's anything at all we can do to help, please let us know. I'm genuinely here in a supporting role to help all of your communities create the vision statements, maybe create community plans. Again, we don't know where we're going to land. Right now, we're pointing west on the sea, and we're going to see where it takes us. So with that, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak for a moment.
All right, thank you, David. We appreciate your joining us and making your comments. Let's take it back to the questions that we had now for John or Craig, depending whoever you think is best to answer these. I'm sorry, we did have a statement also from Supervisor, our new supervisor, and Sally Jackson is going to provide that. Sally, are you able to unmute yourself to give us that statement?
Yes, it looks like I am.
Great, we hear you loud and clear. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to do this morning. If it sounds like I'm reading, it will be that, at least in part. So District 3's new supervisor, Dr. Donna Michaels, would like to be here today, but she is unable to due to a family medical emergency. My name is Sally Jackson, and I'm her executive assistant. She sends her greetings, and she asked me to share with you that she remains committed to protecting all of the precious resources we are so proud of, including land, water, and air, ensuring that our communities in the Verde Valley are vibrant, healthy places to live and grow. Open space, clean water and air, intentional development that ensures longevity and sustainability for generations are of the utmost importance to Dr. Michaels. These are critical areas that we don't get a second chance at once they are altered. All decisions that impact our environment must align with our community plans, our vision statements, and our stewardship values, not only for sustainability, but in Dr. Michaels' opinion, regenerative potential. We must ask as we consider any environmental impacts, does this plan fit the image of what we want to look at today and tomorrow? If so, how do we improve it to be even better? If not, how do we work toward a solution? Many of you are already committed to making sure that these aspects, hold on one second. There we go. You can
All right,
see me.
just figured out how to get you visual there.
Great.
Sorry,
That's-
Sally. Go right
Oh, no
ahead.
worries. That's wonderful. Many of you are already committed to making sure that these aspects are considered so that we can support our values and expectations as a community today and into the future. Know that Dr. Michaels, as your Yavapai County Supervisor, is alongside you in that effort to protect our precious resources. It is one of the pillars she ran her campaign on, and a promise she made to all of the residents of the Verde Valley and beyond. And I just wanted to say, as on a personal note, I am a fourth, or depending how you count it, fifth generation Arizonan from the Verde Valley, with my family arriving in 1875. And around 1920, my great grandfather, W.A. Jordan, and his sons led the first environmental lawsuit with several farming families in the area when the smelter smoke from the copper mines killed their crops. As the science people may know, the dew in the air at the night would mix with the smelter smoke and created sulfuric acid, which of course is not good for plants or people. Ultimately, the United States Supreme Court did not consider air pollution to be a matter of national concern and turned the decision back to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco. That was 100 years ago. Sustainability is not a given. It's something we must always be mindful of and stay ahead of. Because Dr. Michaels isn't here to answer any questions, if people want to email me, I would be happy to send those on to her to collect them, or I don't know if you want to collect them in the chats that you're doing here, but my email address with the county is sally.jackson@yavapai.us, and all spelling the normal way. And if you would just put in the subject line, you know, today's date and the meeting, just so I keep them all straight. But thank you again for allowing me to speak on her behalf, and good work to all of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Sally. All right, guys, we have about 8 or 9 questions ahead of us. And and Darcy, if we need to wrap this up for your closing comments, you just interrupt when it's time. I'm just going to go through these in order, and we'll address them as quickly and efficiently as we can. So
Sure,
the next one.
Just, I thought it might be helpful to get Craig and John, everybody, their videos going, and I'll spotlight everybody again. So they're at the top.
Okay.
Keep talking.
All right. So the first question is, what discussions will we be having regarding the nexus of community plans and private property rights?
That probably is a question that is more appropriately aimed at David.
I agree.
Yeah.
There we go. Now I got my mic unmuted. I kind of expected that one.
Yeah.
Every plan must respect private property rights. Arizona is a property rights state. So at the end of the day, the plan does not trump property rights. And the courts have ruled on that repeatedly over the years. You know, the plan is, I don't want to say a vision, but it's a guiding document. We get into issues where the plan is not legally binding in relation to private property rights when we look at things that are already as vested rights in the court. So that's something that as we go through the plan, this will be heavily vetted by the county attorney's office as well. We've got attorneys assigned to our department that will be knee deep in this with us. And I don't think I've mentioned that before, but the county attorney's office will be vetting every single page and, you know, word on those pages when we get into the comprehensive plan itself. So it's going to be heavily vetted to ensure that it does meet all of the legal threshold that we need it to meet for content, but also for protection of the property rights. In Arizona, we definitely have to look at both of those equally. So.
Okay. Will a capacity study be included for 89A and Oak Creek watershed?
And can the questioner elaborate on what they mean by capacity study? Traffic capacity for 89A. David, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm not sure that specific traffic capacity studies are expected to be out there in the plan, but there certainly is the entire section on transportation.
There is the entire section on transportation. Now, 89A, of course, is a state highway, so we don't have jurisdiction over that. However, ADOT will be one of our partners as we go through this plan. So they will be providing comments as we go through that related to those highways, 89A, 89, 17, all of their regional infrastructure. They will be providing comments on and looking at that. But a capacity study related to a state highway in a comprehensive plan, I don't know that we're going to have a good, clean nexus back into that. But ADOT will be at the table behind the scenes.
All right, I see Judy Lewis that you had yourself unmuted. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I also am concerned though of the Oak Creek watershed itself and the recreational and effects that capacity has on, particularly that Traffic Matters is working on with Oak Creek Canyon, but also the Yavapai County and how that affects the watershed through Yavapai County with the recreational sites and the neighborhoods and anywhere that the Oak Creek is a part of.
So from a water point of view, the state law actually says we don't have to do any additional hydrological studies. Now, with that said, one of my proposals as we go forward, I'll be putting forward to the board a request for proposals to bring a consultant on board. And inside of that is that consultant will be looking probably to have some hydrological expertise to be able to comment on the water portion, the water element of the comprehensive plan. Right now, I can tell you the county doesn't have anyone on staff anywhere that is a hydrologist qualified to deal with that type of analysis or what would be necessary to meet the requirements of that. Water in case law in Arizona is very, very touchy. We cannot use water as a determining factor for development in a land use decision. It's one of those things. It all shifts up to Arizona Department of Water Resources legally. Coconino County wrote a very large check several years ago, about 10 years ago now, I think. And the shock from that reverberated throughout the state. The case law did on it. So it's something all the counties, the cities are very, very cognizant of and very careful when they look at water. The state was very clear that's their responsibility and they don't want us even making decisions related to that. So, but again, at the table, ADWR is going to be one of our partners. We'll be including them in this process to ensure that it meets their requirements, what they want and what they need.
Okay, there was a question, can we add topics to the vision statement?
I honestly would love to hear what other topics we could add in. As I mentioned before, dark skies to me, this is something that, you're just seeing a little bit of it in the front right now, from what Jeremy and I are looking to propose and bring forward here when it comes to dark skies. I would love to put together a whole network tied educationally to see if we couldn't go get some grants for some of the private astronomy clubs to set up, public telescopes around the county. I was part of I always have to slow down when I figure this out. It's the Gilbert Rotary Centennial Observatory down in Gilbert. And we built, as a private club, we built the largest publicly available telescope in the Western Hemisphere, available to everybody, anytime during the weekend. Anybody could come in and see the stars. We bring in kids for school projects, everything, all free of charge. I'd love to start bringing that type of an element into the county so people have a better opportunity to enjoy that. But so dark skies is one. I would love to hear what some of the other topics may be that we could include in the plan, we could address. Right now, I just don't know. That's part of the fun of this to me is what is going to come out from the communities? What else can we grow on? So.
Okay.
So the answer is yes, throw it in the survey, let us know, and let's try to come up with some answers, but this is the unique part.
All right, the next one was a question about the unincorporated areas again. Incorporated communities have both the elected council members and professional staff to guide the process and ensure wide community representation on a general plan committee. How do unincorporated communities ensure that their process is truly representative of the entire community for whether it's a general plan or a vision statement?
And one thing I'd like to add on that before anybody else is that being representative of the entire community means that representatives of the community have stepped up to join the process. The community activists need to reach out to people within the community, let them know what's happening, be inclusive, allow everybody who wants to have input to come in. But it is those people who offer themselves up, their time, sweat, and effort that is necessary in order to get that representation. And fundamentally, there's nothing the county can do to make certain that residents of the community who are in fact representative volunteer for this. It's the community that needs to do it.
Okay. It seems that the advisory committee is heavily weighted by the Board of Supervisors. Is this the best approach when we are looking for a balanced community involvement?
This is the model that was brought forward right now. So this is completely up to change. Now that we have a new board, a new vision, I wouldn't be surprised if the makeup of this body doesn't change a little bit. Now, one of the things that nobody has seen this yet because my staff report hasn't been submitted to the board yet, but I'm going to be doing a comprehensive plan update in 2 weeks to the board as promised that we would be there every month providing them an update. I am requesting an additional month of time prior to any appointments being made just because Ms. Michaels, of course, is unavailable. We've got other areas where we have not had a lot of interest of people willing to step up and be on the committee. So we're trying to reevaluate right now, provide some more time. But I think this is a good discussion for the board to have to look at changing. Now, I've heard everything, from today of making it just 2 people from every district, which is great. That's the same makeup, by the way, that we have with the Planning Commission. So that would be a, very positive and easy role model type committee. I've heard everything up to 28 members, which is what we did last time. There is no way I think we can have an effective discussion with 28 members with COVID and everything else. I just don't believe we can be effective at that point. I think at a certain point it gets too big, but this is why that local community involvement is so critical. We need the message to come up in the individual communities, to those members, to staff, so that we can bring that message forward. I just think 28 people becomes, just untenable, especially with COVID today.
And if people do have specific suggestions about the advisory committee, that would be something that they could probably take directly to their supervisor, right?
They can take it directly to their supervisors, or if they want to send me an email, I am happy to carry the water on that and take that message up to the board as well.
Okay, great. Next one, it's really important to hear from underrepresented groups. They may not be able to attend meetings or want to. How do we get better, more inclusive input?
This is always a challenge in planning, is trying to get underrepresented groups involved. It's always going to be a challenge. And I think we just have to try to identify within our own communities what those underrepresented groups are and try to find ways to make efforts to get them involved. I know up on the High Line, the I-40 corridor, we're not getting a lot of engagement. I'm trying to get the community groups up there engaged, but when I start looking at that, I don't know in the list if we've got Harvey Grady on today with us or not, but I start looking at, those groups as, we have food deserts in those areas. We start having people that, to buy a gallon of milk, they got to drive 45 minutes over dirt roads to get to a grocery store. We've got affordable housing issues, our workforce. One of the interesting things that we have seen here across the entire county, we talk about workforce housing and the need for that, and I believe that is an underrepresented group right now. We are at a maximum capacity for construction in the county right now based on the workforce. I think actually if we had more workforce available, then, we'd be building more houses, which is a double-edged sword. But right now we're at that peak production, quite frankly, in the development industry. And that's just development. That doesn't take into account everybody who's working at the resorts or working at Ruger, working in these other areas that need to have that affordable housing. They're driving a long ways. I did an analysis a couple of years ago, and somebody driving from Ash Fork down to Prescott to Ruger for a job, the difference in gas that they were burning was the equivalent of $2.30 an hour.
Wow.
In reduced hourly wage, when we balance that out. And that was not unusual. Same thing. If I point the other direction, we go to Cordis to bring somebody in. It's the same thing, or Cordis to the village of Oak Creek. We've got to look at opportunities to help create some of those jobs in those areas, and then have a housing to be able to, have people live in these communities, because, $2.30 an hour, I mean, that's huge. That's, life-changing for a lot of people. To be able to afford to put that on, food, rent, savings, something other than gas and maintenance on their car. Those are definitely things we need to be very cognizant of.
All right. This next question is related to that. Do we know how many community plans for unincorporated areas are anticipated, and what communities might be working on those? There are only 4 to 5 in the VV Rio website library, and the rest are incorporated communities.
So this is not a Verde-centric, project. We're looking at 8,000 square miles. I know we had interest in Congress, Yarnell, the Prescott area. I'm trying to get people spun up and excited in the Cordis, Spring Valley, in that area. We're trying to get people, we've got a lot of interest down in Black Canyon City. Ideally, in a dream world, I would love to see 20 plans come in. I really, truly would. And I think that would be very representative of the entire county then. We're probably, I hate to say we're probably going to be in the 10 community vision statement range, but I think it'll at least be reasonably representative across the county, balanced on the east and west, type of a level. But we would love to have the involvement. I'd love to have more people, more communities really step up.
This is another one of those areas where it's up to the communities and the people within those communities to offer themselves up to work on these. The county can advertise and request and solicit these from now until doomsday, but if somebody from within those communities doesn't step up to be the leader of that effort, it won't get done. Because there's nothing mandatory. The county isn't going to say to a community, you have to do this.
I can only lead them to water. And right. Camille just popped in too. And quite frankly, Camille, I'm amazed it escaped me, but Williamson Valley is another group, and they are actively working. Williamson Valley is going to be a very, very active group. They're very active when it comes to these types of plans. So I expect a lot out of Williamson Valley. But if I could get 10, I'd be happy. If I could get 20, it would be wonderful.
I have the enviable task of having to call this, to close this off. It's been such a rich, wonderful conversation, but we just have a couple minutes left. So I wanted to, first of all, thank Craig and KSB for taking oodles of time to dig through and wade through all the details. And John Black, thank you so much for all the work that you and Donna and David Williams have been doing. John, thanks for managing all of the questions as well. You guys are great. I did want to mention there's something that the Sustainability Alliance is working on that you might want to know about. We're developing a scorecard of sustainability indicators. Things like what percentage of renewable energy we have, or how well are our schools doing, or how many people have access to healthcare, et cetera. These data points are scattered all over in different groups and different agencies. And so we're pulling it together. And in regards to Craig was talking about the importance of having goals and measures and that sort of thing. If the work that we're doing becomes becomes sort of a starter list for the county, we'd be delighted. We don't care who owns it, but we just thought we need to have some way to measure how far away we are from sustainability and track it over time and make sure we're doing better. So watch for more of that. Also wanted to thank Yavapai College and Ollie for giving us their platform to allow us to do this meeting. So I'll be sending everybody who registered the slides and the links. Once I figure out how to download the recording, I'll let you know where I've hidden that so that you all can access that as well. Thank you all so much for your time and for all the participants.
Thank you, truly, thank you.
Well, I just want to thank David Williams too for joining